Okay, here we go. I want to apologize to everyone in the UNPL. I did not realize, even though this is an upload-required league, that draft analyses were also a required video. I've obviously been uploading for a long time, and I haven't. I've done maybe like one one draft analysis in my life. I don't think I'm the best drafter either. I think one of my issues in draft leagues is that I'm not a great drafter, and I end up losing a lot early season, and then I make a bunch of changes, and then after realizing kind of what the team is missing, and I think I do a better job kind of with that kind of halfway through the season. So we're trying to get better, but either way, here we are. So I'm going to do a draft analysis, and with me, I have my daughter, who is going to make her comments. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi.
So she's going to say hi, and we're going to go through, and we're going to get her thoughts on the Pokemon that I've drafted as well. So, actually, I'm going to do a quick edit here and make sure that her sound is good. If not, we will go ahead and pump that up somehow. So, be back in 1 second. You will probably hardly notice. Actually, you'll probably only notice in like the Switch sounds. But anyway, I'll see you in 1 second. Okay, so turns out that the volume was just fine for my daughter, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. I will call out that I think it's kind of funny that you will probably see the item that I have on the Pokemon for week 2 or for week 1 if I brought it. And then there are a couple of Pokemon that I have not brought yet, and the item will be totally random, or it won't be random, but I did like a competitive set for it. I don't know. So anyway, let's go ahead and start reviewing. So my first pick was Latios here, Ian McKellen. Latios is a very good Pokemon. I don't know what else to say about it. It's going to be a win con for a lot of my games. Typically my first pick in draft, I just kind of look when I'm available. In trying to get better at draft, one of the things I used to do was I would come in with a set idea of, I want to pick this Pokemon, that Pokemon, I want to use this, I want to use that. But that strategy has started to fail me. So what I've done lately is look at the top tier Pokemon that are available when I'm picking, and I just kind of, okay, which of those do I want to use, and then go from there. So we went ahead and picked Latios because it was one of the best Pokemon available when we were picking. And I think I've had Latios before in a draft league. Oh, hopefully that doesn't, hopefully just grand my screen. Let's see if I... Okay, hopefully you didn't even notice that. Anyway, yeah, so Latios, really good Pokemon. Obviously we can drop, you can see the choice specs there. Choice specs, Draco Meteors. It's got a lot of coverage moves. It's got a lot of setup. It can be physical. It can be special. It's usually special, but it's going to be a win con a lot of weeks. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on this Dragon and Psychic Pokemon, Latios?
I think he looks cool, and it looks blue.
Yeah.
My favorite color.
It's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so we got the favorite color going with our first pick, and our second pick, we went ahead and grabbed Sneasler. I know you get a little preview there on the side, but that's okay. So you'll see that this Sneasler is shiny. For those who don't know, I only use shiny Pokemon that I've actually hunted and achieved myself for real. I don't like gen any shiny Pokemon in. So I actually hunted a shiny Sneasler in Let's Go Arceus, and that's why we're going to use our shiny Sneasler this season, Yellow Jacket. So Yellow Jacket, the Sneasler, is... it's kind of a compliment to Latios, I thought. It's another high-tier Pokemon, trying to get my high-tier picks out of the way. And it's super fast. It's also a potential win con. It's also a potential breaker. That's kind of what I like about pairing it with Latios, is that I can use it. You know, one of them can be the breaker, one of them can be the sweeper, and it can kind of go either way both weeks, right? These two Pokemon will hopefully come to most matches. You know, Sneasler with its Unburden makes it super, super fast, too. So that's where the win con comes in for it, hopefully. And even without the Unburden, it's insanely fast. So hits really hard, really fast. Oh, one other thing I want to mention about this league and why I wanted Sneasler so badly was Dire Claw. A lot of leagues don't let you click Dire Claw even once it's put something to sleep, right? So you would automatically forfeit because you're breaking sleep clause. For those of my friends who don't follow Pokemon super tightly, sleep clause is common and competitive where you can't put two of your opponent's Pokemon to sleep at the same time. Otherwise, if you think about it, right, a really fast Pokemon with like Sleep Powder or something would be very broken. Just put your entire opponent's team to sleep. Would be very broken, competitively anyway. So the thing about this league is that Dire Claw, I'm not banned from clicking Dire Claw if I put something else to sleep. I'm just looking at the rule set right now, trying to read the actual. So the sleep clause for this league, sleep clause. If a player has already put a Pokemon on their opponent's side to sleep and it is still sleeping, another one can't be put to sleep. Self-inflicted sleep does not count. That's pretty standard. So like rest does not count. Uncontrollable sleep effects, such as Effect Spore or Dire Claw, does not count. So I've played in a lot of leagues before where Dire Claw, once you've put something to sleep, you can't click Dire Claw because of the chance that it puts the opponent to sleep. Again, for my Pokemon, non-hardcore Pokemon fans, friends, I guess, fans. I don't have any fans. I don't have any fans. Anyway, so, hey, if you're a fan, if you're actually a fan, what should you do, kid?
I like his...
no, talk about the Pokemon later. What do we say? Remember, you keep telling me I should say something in my videos. What do I say?
Yeah. Please like and subscribe. We love to read your comments. Please bring some comments so that we can read them.
Yeah, so now you have to. I mean, come on. How can you not after hearing that? Anyway, so I was talking about Dire Claw. So, right, so my friends who don't maybe follow Pokemon as hardcore as you know, some people who are watching this video, Dire Claw has a 50% chance to inflict a status. So it could be poison, could be paralyzed, could be sleep. And so being allowed to click Dire Claw, even if I put something to sleep, I thought that was really cool. Not every league allows that, so I wanted to go ahead and draft Sneasler where I have a chance to do that. So, moving on. Do you want to talk about Sneasler?
I like his name.
You like Yellow Jacket as a name? Because he kind of looks... He's really fast and like, really fast and physically powerful, just like a Yellow Jacket bee, I guess.
Yeah. And it's cool that you hunted it as a shiny.
Yeah.
I've never been able to do that before.
Yeah, maybe not. You helped me when you were like 3 years old. You helped me. I set this kid up when she was like 3 years old with a DS to just run back and forth on the grass and help me hunt for things like shinies. And I think she helped me hunt for the lucky egg in Pokemon Crystal once. She was a good little grinder back in the day. She could grind out Pokemon all day for me if I wanted her to. Not all day. I'm a good parent, I promise. Anyway, so with my next pick, I would go ahead and call out here that typically people in draft want to, you know, go after their Dragon, Steel, and Fairy cores early. That makes a good team. Typically, that's a standard thing people do. Another core, Fire, Water, Grass. We're not anywhere near. Now, another core that I think about. I don't always go for this, but I think about this one a lot, and I haven't heard people talk about it too much. But another interesting core is Psychic, Fighting, and Dark. I think of that as a decent core as well. That is actually kind of important because Psychic types tend to be pretty powerful, and Dark types are pretty much critical because they can wall the Psychic types, right? You can't just set up a Calm Mind infinitely. Like you have to have something to deal with the Dark type. Set up Calm Mind with only your Psychic move. That is, you know, you need a coverage move. You need something to deal with the Dark type. So I went after both of those directions. Actually, one more thing is that I actually in the next pick was shooting for picking a spinner, so Rapid Spinner. So I wanted Iron Treads. Was the pick I wanted next, and Iron Treads got sniped. I think actually like 2 picks before me too. So I went in this other direction. So Iron Treads would have been a spinner, would have been a ground type, would have been that steel to talk about. I'd get a dragon. I already have my dragon Latios. Getting a steel for that Dragon Steel Fairy core. But Iron Treads was gone. So we went the old school Orzan route. And we went after a threat. Some of my best drafts are when I stop worrying so much about what types I have, what roles that I have. I mean, those are both things you obviously need to consider. But the best drafts I've ever had, I feel like, I just pick up threats. I stop worrying about what the synergies are, and I just want my opponent to look at my team and say, how the hell am I going to prepare for this? I got to worry about Latios, I got to worry about Sneasler, and now I got to worry about King Gambit too? So we picked up King Gambit. again, this fills out a Psychic Fighting Dark core. Again, not super common that people think about that, but I always try to think about that in my drafts a little bit. It gives us a steel type, so we have the dragon and the steel. I will also note that King Gambit's biggest weakness is fighting type moves, obviously, being 4 times weak to them. Sneasler 4 times resists fighting, and Latios also resists fighting. So, something to think about there. We have a little bit of a ground weakness going on between Sneasler and King Gambit, but Latios also is immune to ground. So I thought that it kind of rounded out the picks pretty nicely, even though I wanted to get Iron Treads with a spinner. This Pokemon is a massive threat. I mean, you cannot, even though I can't Terrasilize it, it's a threat, man. You can't just ignore this Pokemon. You could easily get reverse swept. I've been reverse swept by King Gambit. Although, truth be told, that was when it Terrasalized into a Ghost type, I believe. But regardless, it's a scary Pokemon, and you can't just forget about it, right? So I've nicknamed this one Vader. I think it kind of makes sense because Darth Vader is kind of like an evil space wizard samurai, and this is a dark type, so it's sort of evil. Samurai Pokemon, also more machine than man, because he's steel type, right? So yeah, I don't know, it's a cool Pokemon. I can't wait to use it. What do you think, kid?
I think it's funny that it's named Darth Vader.
Yeah. Anything else?
It actually connects with the types as well.
Yeah. All right, ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, so next, as I had mentioned, I wanted a spinner. One of the things I try to do in drafts is, yes, you can always get a late spinner, but your spinner sort of has to come to most of your games, right? So I always try to make sure my spinner is a good one, like a high tier, valuable Pokemon that I can bring to a lot of games, because if you don't bring your spinner, you're setting yourself up, you know, and not having the threat of a spinner, you know, you obviously need to have a spinner on your team, but like I'm saying, I prefer to have one that I know I can reliably bring to a lot of games. So those were all gone by now. So I went with Regieleki. Obviously, if you watch my games, we had a very bad experience with our Terra Regieleki in the Bidding War League recently. But that was because I spent a lot of points. Bidding War League is like an auction style league, right? So I spent like 40%, is that right? Yeah, like 40% of my budget on Terra at Regieleki, and honestly, it's just not that good. So Regieleki, it's a spinner, it's extremely fast, it's also a threat, right? So people don't, I feel like people don't think of it much of a threat. It's like, okay, you bring your ground type, and then Regieleki doesn't really get much coverage, especially if it's not Terrasilizing, right? So you can just kind of bring a ground type and be done with it. Light speed, by the way. Dang, I didn't realize I was making so many Star Wars references. We're already at 2 Star Wars references with the nicknames, but that's okay. Star Wars is pretty sick. So, anyway, light speed. The Regieleki, it's a spinner. It's a pretty reliable spinner because it's so fast. And if you bring a ghost type in on me, I'm just like, okay, I'll volt switch on you, or you know what I mean? Like I'll have to worry about like if my opponent has like Golurk or something. But either way, it's a good volt switcher. It's a good rapid spinner, and it's good for screens. Obviously, you can see that Light Clay was brought either week 1 or week 2, and it's going to be, yeah, it's a good spinner. And I can set up screens with it. I think screens could be crazy with things like King Gambit and Latios. Hell, Sneasler too, honestly. All those Pokemon could really appreciate screens to set up and beat down my opponent. So it's another threat. It's a very fast electric Pokemon. You know, I think the key with having Regieleki for this league this season is that I'm not going to be relying on it like I was in BWL, right? So in BWL, I needed it to be my win con, and it was very, very easy to prep for. And it just didn't put in the work. But here it's a support, right? It's not supposed to win games for me. If it does, that's fantastic. But making my opponents deal with the Latios, the Sneasler, the King Gambit, and this Pokemon's here to support that. If those Pokemon wear my opponent down and Regieleki can win the game, that's also fantastic. Any thoughts about Lightspeed, the Regieleki?
It looks like a light bulb jumping up and down.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
With little arms that look, I don't know, big.
Yeah.
Big for that light bulb.
Is that all you got?
And also, why would Light Clay go with a light bulb?
Light Clay makes it so when I use the attacks Reflect and Light Screen, normally those only last for 5 turns. So Reflect makes it so my Pokemon take half damage from physical attacks. Light Screen makes it so they take half damage from special attacks. And those usually only last for 5 turns. 4 if you really think about it, because it also counts the turn you use the attack. So basically 4 more turns of those, what we call screens. Light Clay makes it so instead of being 5 turns, it lasts for 8 turns, which really makes a big difference. It almost doubles it. It's not quite, but almost doubles it. All right, ready to keep going? All right, so at this point, some of my Pokemon are really heavy hitters, and they're really good, they're really strong, but we really need some pivots. So this is another high point Pokemon that I spent on Swampert. Swampert we call Gaussian because I'm a statistician. Gaussian is the fancy name for the normal distribution, the Gaussian distribution. Gauss was a famous statistician, so I've called my Swamperts Gaussian for years. That's just kind of why I'm calling it Gaussian. There's nothing fancy about Swampert that makes him Gaussian. He's just, to me, my Swampert will always be Gaussian. So Swampert is just a standard, again, support here, right? He can Stealth Rock. He's a water type. He's a ground type, which is critical. I don't really want to fight Swamperts with Regieleki not being able to do anything to it. I mean, you can't do anything to any ground type, but Swampert's a good ground type Pokemon, right? And most importantly, now this generation it has Knockoff and Flip Turn, which are fantastic support moves, right? Now you can also be sneaky with it and run like Choice Band or Choice Scarf. I don't know. There's a lot you can do with a Swampert. And most importantly to me is that Flip Turn is going to get in Pokemon like Sneasler, Pokemon like King Gambit for free, without taking any damage, ideally, and letting them put in the work, right? So imagine you switch your Grass type Pokemon into a Swampert who flip turns into Sneasler. Now I got a free Dire Claw. Go ahead and bring in your Steel type that's immune to Dire Claw, because then I'm going to close combat you in the face. What do you think, kid?
So, what, like, I don't know why is his name Gaussian?
Well, Gaussian, that's like just what I call my Swamperts. You know how you you famously named your first Entei Scatch?
Yeah.
Well, Swampert I just call Gaussian. I don't know. I just call it Gaussian. I think I was doing a Nuzlocke challenge once, and I was like, what am I going to name my Mudkip? And I said, Gaussian. Why not? I think that's probably what happened.
Oh.
Any other thoughts about Swampert before I move on?
It looks like a lizard.
I could see that. It's actually a, do you know what an axolotl is? Here, let me, this is what it is in real life.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, you ready? You done with Swampert?
Yep.
Okay, so for the next pick, you're going to see Diancie on the screen. I will say that when I originally drafted, I actually had picked, I picked up, what's it called? Enamorous Therian as a fairy type. I needed a fairy at this point. Fairy Pokemon are very critical to draft. You need to have a fairy. Like, you absolutely have to have a fairy. Otherwise, dragon types are just going to stunt all over you. So, originally I picked Enamorous Therian because, I needed that ground immunity too, or I wanted that ground immunity too. But I actually went back later and realized that my speed tiers were trash. Now, Diancie doesn't really fix that problem, but in moving my Pokemon around, Diancie gave me spikes, and it gave me... Oh, I guess I'll just move on now that you see it. It gave me spikes, which I didn't have. It gave me rock type, which I didn't have. It did help the speed tiers a little, I believe. Let me look at what I got going on here. No, it didn't really help the speed tiers. I guess I don't have a lot to say to why we swapped that fairy type. Obviously, I'll talk more in a minute about other moves that I made, but we swapped Enamorous Therian to Diancie. Oh, it's because I built up an ice weakness. That's why. Especially freeze dry. Especially to freeze dry. I had not very good ice, like Latios being weak to ice. King Gambit resisted it, sure. But especially if you include freeze dry, Swampert's like 4 times weak to it. And Enamorous being weak to it. You'll see other picks that I had were also going to be weak to it. So yeah, we switched to Diancie. So Diancie, it's a bulky fairy type. It can help. It's also a rock setter. It's a hazard setter. Another interesting thing, this was also a pick where I kind of wanted to use it because I've seen a lot of people come away with a lot of knockouts. Like this Pokemon putting in more work than people ever expect it to. Like I feel like it always gets more kills than I would imagine. It's always on the kill leaderboard, at least in leagues I've been in, and it kind of surprises me. I'm like, really, Diancie did that. So I wanted to try it out. You know, Diamond Storm is a cool move that we'll be able to rock with it. So any thoughts about Diancie? I just called it Amethyst because that's kind of the gem color that it has there. That's a type of a gem. You probably know that because, yeah, you probably know that. It's in Minecraft. So, yeah, go ahead. What do you think about Diancie?
I think if there was a diamond type, he would be that type.
A diamond type, it would be this one?
Yeah, if there was a diamond type, it would be that type.
That makes sense.
And why is it a fairy type? Because it doesn't seem like it would be a fairy type.
I don't know. It's like a diamond fairy. Doesn't it kind of look like a... Like if you had to imagine a diamond as a fairy, isn't that kind of what you would picture? Something like that?
I guess it kind of.
All right. Well, listen, Game Freak. My daughter doesn't understand why this is a fairy, so you need to do better. Right? All right. So again, I'm actually going to pull up here the transactions because I don't remember what I just remember that my original fairy was going to be... If you think this doesn't look like a fairy, so my original was an Amorous, but I also didn't originally draft this next Pokemon. I actually had... Wait, what? Where did I make multiple transactions? I did. So I swapped an Amorous directly for Diancie. Okay, that was because of the ice weakness. And then I made a bunch of changes to my Terra Captains. Originally, I'll just go ahead and say, I had Clawitzer, I had Braviary, the Hisuian version, which wasn't a Terra Captain, but it was a Pokemon on my team, and Thwackey. Thwackey was supposed to set the grassy terrain for to make it very easy to activate Sneasler's Unburden. But we made some moves, and we picked another fairy, and this one has Levitate, so it's not necessarily a ground weakness. It can be a ground weakness when I do run the other abilities, but it does have Levitate, so it has the option of being immune. My opponent has to consider that. So, anyway, we also drafted Galarian Weezing, Mr. Doug Dimmadome, Mr. Snoop Dogg himself, because those stacks look like something, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, hopefully you don't know what I'm talking about. No, she doesn't. Good. So, Weezing, Galarian Weezing. It's another fairy type. This one's not 4 times weak to steel. This one, again, it can be immune to ground, but it's not weak to poison, which is actually neither is Diancie. Interesting. Maybe I'm doubling up here, and maybe this is showing how I'm not a great drafter. I don't know, but I thought Weezing was great as a different way to activate the Unburden for Sneasler, and it also can be a ground immunity if I want it to be. So I have a lot of different options I can run here. It's a defensive wall. I wanted more bulk. So Galarian Weezing it is. So if you thought that Diancie didn't look like a fairy, did you know that this Pokemon is a fairy?
What?
It's a poison and fairy type. Any thoughts?
So, it kind of looks like a live factory almost.
A live factory?
Like a live factory because it's like
the smokestacks. Yeah, I see it. I see it. Yeah. I think that's what it's supposed to look like, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for.
Oh. With a bunch of
Because he also is a poison type, right? He's he's poisoning the air.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, so that's all you got for Weezing? Don't worry, we're almost done, kid. We've got a few left. So I mentioned that I dropped Thwackey, so I didn't have a grass type, and I also still needed Terra Captains. And the other big thing I needed was my original draft. The speed tiers were so bad. I had I think it was from Latios's base speed of 110. My next fastest Pokemon was base 66 speed. And then I had a bunch of Pokemon, as you probably have already seen. 66 is one you haven't seen yet. Swampert is 60, Weezing is 60, Kingambit is 50, Diancie is 50. I had a bunch in that range, but I had nothing in the range between Latios and and that base 66 Pokemon. So we needed to fix that, and that's why we got rid of, and Clawitzer is also 50, I believe. So that did not help, right? None of those Pokemon were helping. So we went from, we dropped Thwackey, we dropped Clawitzer, we dropped the Hisuian Braviary. Again, I think the Braviary is like 60 or something, 65, I think. So we picked up Leafeon as a base 95 Terra Captain. It's a grass type to replace the one that we dropped. Being a Terra Captain is kind of cool because you can, like, it has the sun capabilities, right? It's got chlorophyll. It also has knockoff. I think, what are the Terra types that I chose? Let's see. I just chose grass, water, fire. I kind of wish one of those had been dark now. I mean, I just I just used that as an example, and I didn't even pick it. But so grass, because really hard hitting grass moves, right? I can run a choice band or something, or even scarf. Water, because it's a good defensive one, and fire also because I felt like that's a very good offensive choice. If I wanted to click Sunny Day and not have to set up with anything else, I could go fire and start clicking like Terra Blast in the, Terra Blast Fire in the sun and stuff. So this is my first Terra Captain, Leafeon. And you have any thoughts on Leafeon?
It kind of looks like a pony with a bunch of leaves.
A pony with a bunch of leaves. That's interesting. Well, it evolves from Eevee. Do you recognize that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a what we call an evolution. It evolves from one of the many Pokemon that evolve from Eevee. I always like to have one of them on my team. Everybody loves Eevee, dude. Everybody loves Eevee.
I like Eevee.
Yeah. All right, moving on. I don't know if this is the last one or not off the top of my head. No, should be two more. So, or at least two more? Should be two more. Yeah, should be two more. Okay, so we had to pick another low point Terra Captain. So for this league, you can't use your Terra points like to make Terra Captains on strong Pokemon. That's why we don't have like Latios or Sneasler, which would be the obvious choices. But have to do low tier, pretty low tier Terra Captains. So my other Terra Captain, I only have one other, is Greedent. I'm calling him Mr. Chonk the Squirrel, because that's a beefy squirrel, dude. Can you imagine a squirrel like that running around? Like, that is a chonky squirrel, man. So I picked it because I've seen it work in draft. This is not a Pokemon I'm probably going to bring every week. It's not very good, but it does have some redeeming qualities. It's basically two-trick pony. One-trick pony really is to set up with a berry and the ability Cheek Pouch to get a ton of HP back. So you can click a setup move, and even if your opponent like goes after you to try to get you weakened while you're setting up, you end up pretty much back to full health after setting up with something like Belly Drum or Curse or something, and make it really difficult for your opponent to break you. And if they don't attack you in the turn you set up, right? So if you find a good opportunity, like under screens maybe, or like maybe from a memento or something, you get a good opportunity to set up this Pokemon, and then you can be at full HP already set up, and then they got to break through you twice, because they have to break through your berry and your Cheek Pouch, all the HP you're going to get back. So it's not a great Pokemon, but it is our second Terra Captain. We'll bring it sometimes, I'm sure. We picked for Terra types normal, because just to make its normal type moves hit harder. Ghost is an obvious one to dodge its fighting type weakness, right? So I could bring it in on a fighting type and try to set up, if they're going to try to go for a fighting type move, and change to a ghost type so that it's immune. And Fairy in the same way. Fairy type terrestrialization, so that it can resist its one weakness in fighting. And also Fairy is just an incredible type in general. So any thoughts about Mr. Chonk?
His tail is giant and hairy.
His tail is giant and hairy.
Yeah. Kind of looks a bit bigger than my little sister.
Bigger than your little sister? Yeah, it probably is. It probably is. All right. The squirrel whose tail is bigger than her little sister. And I believe the last Pokemon I need to talk about today is the Skeledirge. Yes, because the Alolan Executor is for a different league. So Skeledirge is our last pick. Again, as I had mentioned, I kind of realized toward the tail end of my draft, the original draft, that I did not have a good Ice type switch in at all. Like, Ice was really a problem for me. Also, another thing that's a problem for me is Fairy, because my Steel type in King Gambit does not resist Fairy. Neither does Latios is one of my best Pokemon is weak to it. Sneasler doesn't resist, even though it's a poison type. Sneasler does not resist fairy either. I guess in those moves I made, Weezing is also a physical fairy switch. But this is sort of an all-encompassing ice fairy switch. Like, it covered a lot of things that I needed a switch in for. We also didn't have a fire or ghost type, so I felt like it really put in a lot of took a lot of roles that we that we needed some help. It's very, very bulky. Excuse me. It also has access to. Oh, I gotta go. Dang. We gotta wrap this up. So it has a lot of covers a lot of roles that we don't have. It also has unaware. So you know, to deal with setup Pokemon, in that I didn't have that role filled either. So we'll probably have to run Heavy Duty Boots a lot on it. But we did get Regieleki as a spinner, so I don't know. We'll see. Clearly, I either am running Assault Vest week 1 or 2, or I just put Assault Vest on there. Could have been a VGCmon, could have been a week 1, could have been a week 2. Trying to keep you on your toes. All right, I got to get going. So any last thoughts first on Skeledirge?
He kind of looks like he has flames coming out of his head.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be coming out of his mouth, like foaming at the mouth almost. That's kind of what I see it as. I don't know if everyone sees it the same, but he's a spicy fire ghost alligator.
Like, it kind of looks like a lizard with flames coming out of his head.
Yeah, he's an alligator and flames coming out of his head. Yeah, definitely. Maybe crocodile. I don't know. Probably crocodile actually, because the middle evolution is called Crocalore. So. Anyway, any thoughts on my whole draft? Do you think we'll win it all?
Yeah, I think it'll win.
Excellent. Any other final thoughts?
Good luck.
Good luck. Thanks, kiddo. Yeah, so, and as she told you to like and subscribe. So, good God, we did a whole half an hour on that. I can't even believe that. I'm sorry, man. Hey, if you stuck around, like the kid said,
like and subscribe, and don't forget the comments. We love to read your comments.
I mean, you kind of have to now, right? You have to. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.